All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our 10th Global Cougs Speaker Series presentation. The Global Cougs Speaker Series gives individuals from WSU and around the world a platform to share thought-provoking stories, experiences, and projects that are global in nature. Speaker Series talks are for everyone in the WSU community. However, if you're a student, you can also attend Speaker Series talks like this one today, as one of your 3 elective experiences required for each of the Global Cougs digital badges. Today, Lauren Reed's presentation will explore themes related to perspective taken and cultural diversity. It will be recorded and shared on the Digital Badge Connect database, where you can find other elective experiences. If you'd like to participate in the Digital Badge program or have any questions about it, please feel free to join us at our weekly info sessions every Tuesday. That's today. Every Tuesday, though, at 4:30 p.m. Pacific time. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to Lauren Reed from International Programs here at WSU, and she's going to take us through I really like the theme today. Taking all of, we've had a lot of global stories, but then bringing it into the meaningful work history. I'm excited to hear your views on that. So thank you.
Thank you, Jacob. I hope I live up to your expectations. So as Jacob said, my name is Lauren Mackenzie Reed, and today I'm going to be talking about kind of a lot of experiences abroad, but it all comes back to this one internship that I had and why I think that that was a really valuable experience for me to have, and how you can maybe seek experiences like that in your own life. So here I am, younger, and I just want to give you a little bit of background about myself. When I was an undergrad at university, I was studying to get my BA in English literature. I went to school not knowing what I wanted to do with my life. And some of you may be like that. You have ideas about what you want out of life, but maybe not sure about a career path. And so I'm hoping today I can help you a little bit with that, because as I was studying English, everyone in my life was like, oh, are you going to teach? Are you going to get your teaching certification? And I didn't. I wasn't sure I wanted to teach little children. And I thought that that kind of certification would box me in really early in my career. And so I just kept taking classes as a university student that I enjoyed. And a lot of those classes kind of culminated in me getting a minor in sociology. So as a part of that minor in sociology, I actually had the wonderful experience of studying abroad. And I got to live in the country of Mali in Western Africa. And so here's a map, because a lot of people don't know a lot about Mali, but Timbuktu is there. So whenever anybody says, Timbuktu, this is where I went there to study. And I got to take 2 classes there. And these classes were studying nomadic cultures. So we landed in Gao, and we went along the Niger River to Timbuktu and to Mopti and to Djenné, and all of these ancient, beautiful places. And this was a really great experience for me, but it's not the experience that I'm really going to focus on today. I need it there to compare. So here are a couple photos of Mali. It's in the Sahara Desert, and so you can see there are some trees, and they use the twigs to make homes, or they build their homes out of mud and brick. And this here is actually, I don't know if you can see my mouse. Can you see my mouse, everybody? I'm like gesturing. Okay, great. So this is a plateau, and these homes are actually, it's hard to see, but they're carved into the stone there. We have Native American cultures in the US that do similar things with this soft stone. And these are prehistoric places. People have lived there since before history. And here I am. I look like I'm laughing and smiling, but I think I'm fearing for my life here, because I'm like climbing down the side of one on a log. But this is my study abroad experience, and it's really unusual. A lot of people go to like an actual university in another country, and there I was living in a tent. And it was a really important experience for me, but I'm going to compare it to some other experiences and kind of give you a highlight reel of why I think that the other experiences might have been more important. So after I graduated, like I said, I had an MA, I had a BA in English, but I wasn't going to be a teacher. I wasn't really certified to do anything. And so a wonderful professor suggested going on to get a master's because I wasn't sure. And so I got an MFA in creative writing, which was a really great experience for me because I still loved reading and writing, and it was something I was passionate about. And I was invited to teach at the university. Lots of universities do have assistantships like this, and that made school more affordable for me. And it was also work experience, which I needed because I didn't have any. And while considering careers for what to do afterward, I was like, okay, I could just teach. I really like teaching, but I knew in my heart that I really wanted to travel. So when I was applying for jobs teaching and jobs editing, I was bold and I applied for other opportunities, and not necessarily work opportunities. I applied for internships and things like that. And I was lucky enough to get one, the right one for me, because I really feel like this is what I needed in my life at that time. So what next? This is a picture of my tiny, tiny kitchen in Berlin. I got an internship with the US government through the State Department to be an intern in their public affairs office in the press section. So embassies do a lot of different work. I knew nothing about it when I took this opportunity, but they have, they work with local businesses. They get grants and they support local education programs. They, they need accountants and they need communication directors and they need all of these people, and they take on interns in all of these different departments. So if your major is very different than my major, everything I'm about to say could still apply to you. If you're interested in this kind of opportunity, you could be in a different office. They even have nurses stations or small doctor's offices, depending on which country they're in. So if you're a medical student, I think they even take people who are interested in those fields to be interns in their embassies and their consulates. So in Germany, for example, there are 5 other consulates because we have such a strong relationship with them. So I was at the embassy in Berlin, but I could have ended up in Frankfurt or another city in Germany. And the reason I was placed with Germany was only because I had taken German classes as an undergrad. To get an English degree, you needed to have a language requirement. So if your major requires you to take a couple classes in a language, you would qualify for an internship in one of those countries pretty easily, because I was not fluent in German. I had taken the classes, but I really underestimated my ability, and maybe I didn't even underestimate my ability. Maybe I was right that I didn't speak enough German, but I said yes. I was very excited about the opportunity, and I moved to Berlin. In the picture on the left, this neighborhood was actually where I lived. It's called Nikolaiviertel, and it's the oldest quarter in the center of Berlin, in Mitte, the very center of the city. And it's along this beautiful river, and you can see in the background the Berliner Dom, which used to be a cathedral, but is now a museum. And actually that building is on an island. It's called Museum Island. So I would leave this beautiful yellow neighborhood and I would walk down this street to work every day. These 2 bricks here that I'm showing you a picture of my feet, this is actually throughout the entire city. It's divided by these 2 bricks where the Berlin Wall used to stand. And something that Berlin does very well is remembering the past while moving forward to the future. And so these bricks are just a quiet reminder of how segregated and different the city used to be post-war, which I thought was really beautiful. So here is a picture of the Brandenburger Tor, which is this gate. It's this important monument right in the center of Berlin. And behind it is Tiergarten, which is like their version of Central Park, basically. And this is Pariser Platz, Paris Place, because the French embassy is just out of the picture. The reason I'm showing you this picture is because it's the center of the city and it's amazing, but right here on the left is the US embassy. So this is where I went to work every day. And then in this other picture, you can kind of see it's turned to the side. This is the embassy right here. I don't have any great photos of myself in the building because no cameras are allowed. And if you were in the building and you had a camera phone, you had to check it. And so there's no pictures of me like at work, in work, but I did want you to see this building and how great it is right in the middle of the city. I thought that was such a neat opportunity to just be right in the center of things. In this picture on the right is still the Brandenburger Tor, the gate. You can see the Quadriga, these 4 horses, but it's the other angle down this street called Unter den Linden, which means under the linden trees. And it's just a really important street right through the center of the city with all the embassies. There's Russia on the right, France on the left. And this is my walk to work every day. And if you see these two spires in the very back, that's Nikolai Kershaw. It's the church that my little neighborhood was named after. So this was my like mile-long walk to work every day. And you can see a lot of other really beautiful monuments. It's a great city and very welcoming for somebody who maybe didn't speak the language perfectly. So it was a good place for me to land. So let me tell you a little bit about what I did as an intern, other than being in awe of the city and everything. I didn't really know what I was in for. When I got this press section internship, I thought maybe I would be doing writing and editing. They chose an English major after all, so I thought, okay, that's my job. But it was so much more than that. And it was the other jobs that really shaped my time there. And I think changed me and were significant in my life. So the first story that I want to tell you is about my very first day at work. I show up, I have my umbrella because it's raining, and I got in trouble with the security guard because you're not allowed to have an umbrella in the building. I guess you can sneak things inside of them and they're dangerous. So I had to check it at the security checkpoint at the front of the embassy. There's Marines that work the security of the embassy. And so this really nice, but a little scary on my first day, Marine took my umbrella, and my boss came and collected me and gave me a tour of the embassy. So we're in the lobby and she points to some art and she goes, "This is a Warhol. The reason it's sparkly is because it's made with diamond dust." I was like, wow, this is amazing. And we passed this courtyard. The statue was donated by these important people. Very cool. And then we go up the elevator and she shows me how to use my security clearance to get in the elevator and go up to my floor where I work. And she shows me other important buildings like this glass room on the top floor where the embassy often holds events for the ambassador to give speeches and important people to visit. Then I went to a meeting about security and learned the umbrella rule and some other unexpected rules, like don't take the same route to work every day. That was kind of an unusual rule. I hadn't thought about that kind of security at the embassy. But if somebody saw me going in every day and knew my route to work, then that could be dangerous. Germany is a really safe country, but all of the embassies have the same rules for various reasons. So that was something new I had to get used to and explore different parts of the city on my way to work. And then at the end of the day, my boss came to me and said, "Hey, we're having an event tonight. We don't have enough people to escort our guests upstairs. We need somebody with a security clearance. You're it." And on my very first day, I had to go down to the security checkpoint, tell our guests to leave things like phones and umbrellas, give them a tour of the embassy that I had just received that morning and go, "Over here is a Warhol. See how it's sparkly? It's made with diamond dust. Here's an important courtyard where this statue was donated. And let's take the elevator." And every time just cross my fingers that I would remember my security code to go up the elevator to the top floor where the ambassador gave a speech that evening. And so it was just this magical first day, but I really feel like it was a great metaphor for the experience that I was about to have. Every day I would think I would know what I would be doing that day. I'd come in and I'd want to edit or want to do something and something else would pop up. A guest needs to be picked up, somebody needs to be escorted. We need to go to a museum opening and take photos of the ambassador, things that I had never done before. I was suddenly doing all the time. And my very first weekend there, I had to film the ambassador running in the Berlin Marathon. I had no idea how to film somebody on like a tripod in a safe environment, let alone I had to go buy shoes and run alongside this ambassador in this marathon and then get in a car and go to another location and film and run by again. And in the rain, it was just crazy first week. But these are the kinds of things that really helped me break down my expectations for the job and grow into a person that was more flexible. Before this, I wasn't comfortable with not knowing what was next or not having a schedule or a routine. And I had to really break out of that to work in this kind of environment. The second day that I was there, I had to interview a new intern that was going to start the next year. I'd only been an intern for a day, so I knew very little about the job, but I sat in and I contributed to these interviews. It was just strange to have that much authority day two. But again, I think that these kinds of unexpected tasks being thrown at me really quickly really shaped me. Other highlights of my time there, I introduced important people. Part of what embassies do is build connections and friendships and relationships between the countries that they're in the US. And so Poets would come and give readings. Historians would come and give talks. We had educational events, art events, just building that relationship and making sure that the communities we're in feel a positive connection to our country. I visited schools as a guest speaker, talking about what it's like to study in the US. I translated news briefings and resumes and things that really helped me improve my German while I was there. I got to escort Ambassador Bartley, the ambassador who was there when the wall fell, when he came and did a series of speeches on the anniversary of the reunification and the wall falling. And I got to type up talking points for speeches that the ambassador gave, because the ambassador is always so busy. He cannot read every 30-page document that comes across his desk that he needs to. I would find highlights and make sure that he knew what he needed to know when he was presenting or speaking somewhere. And seeing his speeches later, I realized how important that is and how a lot of people go into everything that the embassy does and puts together. And so that was just, it was rewarding. Every day felt rewarding, but again, unexpected and asked a lot of me. So why do I think this internship in Germany was more meaningful than my study abroad experience in Mali? Mali's obviously like a much different culture than our own. And so why would I say that? Especially with regards to my work future. I think looking back on the reason why I think Germany was more important for me and my career is that I was so passive in Mali. I was learning and observing, attending performances and visiting villages, but my French wasn't very good, because even if you speak French, Malian French has so many dialect differences that it's difficult to comprehend and to carry on an in-depth conversation. My professor led us around, showed and explained and directed my experiences there. And I was too shy to just reach out and talk to people on my own without being guided. And of course I was in a group with other students. So I was just it was a very insular experience. I was just me and my safe group watching. But in Germany, I was really active. I was learning by doing and leading events, and my German was good enough, but more importantly, it grew because I wasn't afraid to use it in practice during my time there. So what I want you to learn from my experiences is that you just need to be active, whatever you're doing. If you're studying abroad or in any other kind of environment, you should never stop pushing yourself. You should always speak to new people, make new connections. I know that it can be really stressful and you feel that knot in your stomach, but you should really do it. Every interaction changes you. Even if you're stateside, you can ask yourself, what can you do to engage and to grow your skills? You can join clubs on campus. You can practice your languages in speaking groups. You can volunteer at a library or a food bank or on campus so that you continue to interact meaningfully with others and others that might be different than yourself. And you should always say yes to new opportunities. I was asked, can you film this marathon? If I had said no, doubting myself, I would have never been out there in the rain doing it and talking about it 10 years later. It's saying yes that gives you the opportunity to add things to your resume, which I'll talk to you about in just a few minutes. But I want you to ask yourself, this is something I wish somebody had said to me when I was younger. What do you wish you could put on your resume that you can't yet? And then find ways to add it. If you have a job you know you want in the future, go on LinkedIn and find people who have that job. What can they say about their career that you can't yet? Or what skills can they say they have that you don't have yet? Find ways to add those to your resume by doing what you can now. So I'm going to start using a metaphor. And so part of my metaphor comes from my experience in Germany. These are some buildings in Berlin that were bombed during World War II that they have kept remain standing because of what, like I said before, they want to remember the history, but they want to move on from it too. They don't want it to just be where they are now. So they have this interesting church, St. Michael's, that was obviously bombed. You can see the top is broken, and there used to be a much larger cathedral to the side, and they've built this really modern church that goes around it to commemorate what was and to show what is, and they're moving toward the future. And then there's these great buildings. This was a beautiful hotel. I'm sorry, it's my amateur photography. There's a lot of reflection, but they, instead of renovating or adding on or rebuilding, they left this beautiful architecture standing and put glass in front of it. So even though you're in this new, very futuristic mall, you can see what was before. And in Dresden, what I really liked was this church. You can see in this picture, they've built it exactly as it used to look, but it was destroyed. And so the reason some of the bricks are darker is those are the original bricks from the original building that they used with new bricks to reconstruct the beautiful, beautiful church. And so you can see how on the right side, it's a bit darker and then it fades to a lighter color with the black speckled in. And I just love these as a metaphor for a lot of things. But today my metaphor is which moments will become building blocks for you to help you build your career. So which experiences, which moments, which skills that you're developing each day will help you to move toward the path that you want to. So now I'm going to kind of explain how Germany has shaped my career over the last 10 years. So how did I harness that growth that I had in Germany? Everything I'd done had made me feel really ready to be challenged. I really thrived in that fast-paced environment and I wanted a challenging job and I knew that. And so I wanted to move forward in a way where I could feel challenged every day. And so I'd been teaching, I'd worked with, English, teaching English, but I wanted to move into international education so that I could work in other countries and with people from around the world. I knew that that was the kind of challenge that I was ready for and I'd be really passionate about. So I went back to school and I got a master's in linguistics and teaching English to speakers of other languages. And so this combined my love for languages and my love for people. And I knew that it would be more challenging than what I had been doing, which I had found to be a little bit easy. And I really think that whatever job you end up choosing in the future, having that sense of purpose is really important. And I knew that once I put all of those pieces together, I started to feel really inspired and I felt like I had that purpose. So I joined the Peace Corps. After I got my master's, I got that opportunity to be challenged in another culture again. I got to learn another language, Ukrainian, in a new alphabet, Cyrillic, and went to language classes every day and struggled through them. And again, I had to be a really active learner. One day I learned to ask, where's the square? And then on my way home, I got lost and I had to ask somebody, where's the square? So being really active put me in a better position to do something like the Peace Corps. I felt more ready for that kind of challenge. I got to again feel challenged by my job. In the Peace Corps, it's a lot like my internship. They don't say this is what you're doing every day, 8 to 5, you're gonna do these tasks. They ask you to go out into your community and to really discover what the needs of that community are. And so I was placed in a university and it took me weeks, months to really figure out what they needed, but it ended up being technology training. And so I got to focus on that while I was there, helping future teachers to feel more comfortable using tech in the classroom. And the building blocks that I used from Germany while I was there was just being active, reaching out to others, filling my time with tasks that I set for myself, which I had to do some days in Germany because there had been so many interns before. The files were really messy and I set it upon myself to really organize everything on the computer in a way that future interns would know exactly where to put things, and these kinds of skills, they're not really skills that you develop in, by getting a degree or by getting a certificate. They're just, experiences, soft skills that you can put on your resume one day that make you better qualified for positions. So here's some pictures of Ukraine. This is the beautiful horizon in Chernihiv, the city that I lived in for the first 3 months. There's a beautiful church here, beautiful church here, beautiful church here, beautiful church here. It was just the most amazing architecture I'd ever seen. And then my first day after I had landed, slept, woke up, first full day there. My hotel was like, hey, would you like to see the nuclear fallout shelter in the basement? Yeah, sure. I had never thought about what it would be like to live in a culture where your hotels and your apartment buildings all have nuclear fallout shelters in the basement. But sure enough, there it is. And this stands for Okatrit, which means to open. So it was just every day learning something new about a new culture, which was really exciting for me. After the Peace Corps ended, all of my stuff was in storage. I still felt like I needed to live abroad. So I applied for opportunities all over and I got a position working with the Walt Disney Company and I moved to Suzhou, China. And this is a picture of Suzhou. It is known as the Venice of the East because it's built along this really long canal system that runs from Beijing all the way down to Hangzhou, which is maybe thousands of miles long. And so it's really pretty, and it has the same architecture that it used to during the Ming Dynasty. So all of this unchanged, architecture and these buildings really held on to a lot of their history, and they have these wonderful museums. And I learned a lot about Chinese culture while I was there. And these are some shoes that were used anytime between 1644 and 1911. They're specifically designed for women with bound feet. So again, just very different cultures that I was jumping from and having to kind of learn about and feel comfortable in. And so what I did in Suzhou for the Walt Disney Company is that they used to have these English language centers for after school programs for children. And so I was working with little kids for the first time in my life, and I was always on the go. It was a very active all day, lots of energy job. I didn't have any background with Chinese. And so I had to be the person that really advocated for myself to learn enough to get around and feel safe. No classes were offered as part of the position. So I had to go out and really make that happen. And so the building blocks I used from Germany to succeed in China were that I would say yes to new tasks as often as possible, even if I was unsure of my ability to do them. The corporate office reached out and asked if I would be interested in helping with these rewrites of their curriculum. And I said, yes, sure. I didn't get paid any extra money, but it was another skill that I could add, another task that I had completed, and put that on my resume. And of course I had to be brave, especially with my limited language skills. I had to be more active. So after China, I moved to Hong Kong, also with the Walt Disney Company. This job opened up and they were kind of discussing it before they posted it. And they didn't really know what to do because they wanted to move the schools that were throughout China, these after school program centers, into Hong Kong, but they weren't sure if it was going to work. So they needed somebody to go and feel it out and to see if it was going to be a good fit. However, that didn't seem like full-time work. And to get a visa to a country, you have to have a full-time job description. So I was able to say that I had PR experience. So even though the PR experience hadn't really been a part of my teaching career, which I was really moving toward, I still had all of this other information and abilities to offer them. And so I was able to take this position. The building blocks I used from Germany were that even though I'd lived in China, I had assumed a lot about Hong Kong, thinking they were similar. But once I was there, I realized that they really weren't. And I was humbled with reminders that, we just don't know what we don't know. And so we're there and we're with people and we're learning from those people what their culture's really like. And so one example is, this is actually the roof of my apartment in Hong Kong. It was on Llama Island, which is a tropical island that has no cars. So when you think of Hong Kong, you think about cities, skyscrapers, and all of those businesses that have important corporate centers there. But I was living next to like the beach, and I had this like tropical jungle and a banana grove right outside of my house. So again, I had to reconfront, like, what do I think I know about this culture, and make sure that my expectations didn't limit my experience there, because I was able to put them on hold and really connect with the people and the place around me. After that, I moved to Australia, and this was the first time I'd moved somewhere and didn't have a job lined up. And so I was stressed, but I learned a lot. I took every opportunity I had when I was in Australia. So I ended up working 4 different jobs, sometimes more than once, one at a time. And I learned a lot from each of them. I worked at a regular university, the University of Melbourne, working with international students, but their terms are really short. Instead of 2 big semesters in a summer, they have 4 quarters, one with international students starting and one without, one with them starting, one without. And so that was not really full-time work for me. So I also worked at Greenwich College, which had a lot of night classes. And so I got to work with a lot of non-traditional students who had moved to Australia, which was really great for me to work with people from around the world, different backgrounds. I also started developing online curriculum and building out my resume just by saying, yes, I can do it. A lot of jobs you learn on the job. So it's okay to say, yes, I think I can. As long as you're honest about your ability, you can grow into the positions that you're offered. And so the building blocks that I used from Germany here were just being comfortable with the unknown. I didn't know what was next, and I was able to grow each day. into the positions I was given. So just because it's more fun when there's pictures, here's some pictures from Australia. This is Flinders Street Station. It's the second busiest station in downtown Melbourne. And then there's this really cool building, the public baths, that's been there for a really long time. And people who lived in poorer parts of the city who didn't have maybe a shower at home would go here. It's still there now. I think it's a cultural, like a community center with basketball courts and things. And then here are the 12 Apostles, this beautiful coastline in southern Australia. So due to all of this learned flexibility during my internship, I ended up living on 5 different continents, and I've been to 20 countries, and I've built a resume that I'm really proud of and a skill set that I can apply anywhere, right? Anybody needs editing, speaking, comfortable with like diverse groups. These are all soft skills that help you with any kind of job that you want in the future. So remember my advice and to really ask yourself, what do you wish you could put on your resume that you can't yet? Find ways to add it, even if you're not studying abroad this year. What can you do here in the US or wherever you are to really add these skills and these experiences to what you can say about yourself when you are ready to apply for something. So some examples again, you know, every time I put myself out there and said yes to an unexpected task in Germany, I was adding skills to my resume. So the skills I was able to add were the editing, the translating, the interviewing, leading groups, giving presentations, being a press liaison, being a guide, using new and social media in a work setting. These are all things that I couldn't have said before that internship. Even though I'd had a job, I was able to really fill out what I could say about myself confidently in a work environment. And at Disney, I said yes to helping with those curriculum edits, and that helped me be a candidate for the other job in Hong Kong. And you know, even though I wasn't getting more money for saying yes to something, I was really paid in that experience. And so today we're talking about these things because there's all of these different great badges that you're supposed to be earning. And the two that I'm thinking I'm connecting to my talk are the perspective taking badge and the cultural diversity badge. So perspective taking is just really engaging and learning from perspectives and experiences different than your own, and understanding how your place in the world both informs and limits your knowledge of it. There are so many times, it doesn't matter how many times you travel or how many people you meet, you always need to double check what you think you know about people and interacting with them. And I'm going to give some examples in just a moment. And then cultural diversity, recognizing the origins and influences of your own cultural heritage along with its limitations. Develop the curiosity to learn and collaborate respectively within the cultural diversity of other people. Even if you don't work abroad, everyone has different experiences that make them culturally diverse, whether it's your age or who in your family you lived with when you were growing up, or what cultures other people in your family come from or other people in your community come from, your beliefs, everything really makes us culturally diverse. So practicing this skill as often as possible is really, really important. So skills I learned while working in Germany made me more understanding and patient. When I was teaching in China, working with children, we couldn't communicate, and I just had to smile and laugh through all of the confusion that happened in the classroom. It's part of their learning, and it's part of me learning to do that job. And then with unexpected cultural differences, things I didn't expect to exist, like the differences between China and Hong Kong were really different. You know, Hong Kong was influenced by the colonial history of the United Kingdom going over there for so many years. It is its own environment. It's separate. And so I had to rediscover what it meant to live there. The skills I learned working in Germany helped me to address my cultural expectations. In Ukraine, you're not supposed to shake hands with somebody of the opposite gender. And so often as an American, I'd meet people and I'd reach my hand out and then I'd be like, oh no, and I wouldn't get a handshake. And I had to make sure that I addressed the feelings of like insecurities and like, oh, they don't like me, with just reminding myself it's their culture. They're trying to be respectful of me as a woman by not touching me. They helped me to adapt to varying social norms, whether I should tip, if I try to tip and it's rude, what do I do in those situations? And then of course, in different situations, there's always different cultural rules, like In Ukraine, the very first thing you should do when you walk into a house is take your shoes off. And then in other cultures, that would be considered really rude to take your shoes off in front of people, especially if you've never been in their home. So you know, you always have to check yourself and what you're expecting. And then these skills also made me more resilient. When I was doing the Peace Corps, it was during the Russian invasion, and I got a phone call that I needed to pack my bags and leave immediately. And that was really hard. I think that would be hard for anyone if you're expecting to live somewhere for a certain period of time and then suddenly it's over and you have to go. Being in Germany had made me more confident with the unknown. And while it was difficult, I feel like if I had gone to Ukraine directly from the US, that would have been harder than it already was. So I was really lucky that I had that experience of not knowing what's next, just jumping in, going with the flow, because that was what I needed to get through that experience. So I want you to think about your experiences now and how, even if they're not abroad, they're shaping you to work and live in a more global world. So I know we're all stuck at home, but try to find virtual events where you can interact with people that might be different than yourself, or try to find opportunities in a club or organization to lead and to take on roles that you'd be really proud to put on your resume, and just ask others, what do you need? How can I help? Because that's you making opportunities for you to say yes to new possibility. So I have some resources here if you're interested. The Department of State internship program that I was a part of is this first link. Pretty easy to find if you go to USA Jobs and you just type in internships, a whole page of like how to find what you're looking for, it comes up. I don't know if they're taking applications right now because of COVID-19, but if you go to their website, there is a button that says, keep me informed. And it's a really well-run website. So they will send you emails before they're ready to take applications so that you know that you can get your materials ready. And then they'll send an email when they are ready to take applications so that you can just send it, get it first in. If you're interested in working for the US government, but you're not sure you want to work abroad, there are lots of opportunities if you go to their website, the USA jobs.gov website for students and recent graduates. There's paid internships, there's unpaid internships. And if you're in any field, there's going to be something that works for you. There's engineering internships and computer science internships. You could work in the state of Washington, one of the dams. You could end up anywhere. So try to find opportunities that fit what you really want and where you really want to go. And then of course, if you're interested in the Peace Corps, there was another talk by another speaker that's available on the Global Cougs speaker series page by Nativia. And she goes into more depth about what that's like and the unexpected nature of the Peace Corps, but their website's great and you can go there and get a lot of answers to questions you may have. So thank you very much for coming today and listening to me just chat. And I would love to answer any questions that you may have about any of the things that I mentioned. But if not, I wish you all the best of luck. I know you're all going to do great things.
Thank you so much. I thoroughly enjoyed this presentation. We have one question already in the chat box. So I don't know if you can also see it. It's a question about language learning strategies, helping you learn the languages faster wherever you went.
Yeah, I think that I wasn't the best student in German. I know that for certain, but I also had a teacher who would assign assignments out of the textbook and just say, this is your homework, good luck, you know, and I didn't have a lot of opportunities to practice German. And I was actually really surprised at how good I was at German when I got to Germany and had to use it every day. And that's because of the nature of the experience, of the immersion experience. So my suggestion is when you're in the US and you're studying it outside of the environment, is to find ways to immerse yourself. Watch movies, listen to music. I love music, and there's actually these very embarrassing tapes. If you're also musically minded and you listen to a song once and then you know all of the lyrics and you're like, why do I know these lyrics? Why does my brain store these for such a long time? There's actually these tapes by Berlitz that will sing a lyric in English and sing the same lyric back to you in the language you're learning. And they're so funny, and you'll just be singing these embarrassing songs in German or Italian or French or whatever. but yeah, find ways to just surround yourself with the language. And if you can find people to practice with, especially now that we're all virtual, do it and chat. And just if you bury yourself in it, it does come. And it's surprising how quickly it can come the more contact you have with it.
Yeah, and if I can also add about the language, yeah, I know right now with virtual programs, we have a lot of virtual study abroad programs going right now, but I think the ones that are the most helpful for students based, the other ones are, I'm sure, are helpful, but students have really been latching on to the language learning programs. So for instance, I know of a student I've been working with recently who's going to be doing a Chinese language learning session during her spring semester. So yeah, language, there's a lot of opportunities out there, especially for language.
Right. And I know there's a lot of misnomers about, oh, the older you are, the harder it is, but it's more about just use and jumping in. And for myself, it's basically like a haunted house with locked doors. Once I went down the German corridor, I was more comfortable walking through like the rules of Ukrainian, even though it's totally different alphabet. Just the flexibility of using another language really opens up a third language or a fourth language, and it makes it much easier to jump into something that has different rules and feels like a different math problem. Like, it's just, the more you practice, the more you learn, the more capable you'll find yourself of adding on to that.
Yeah. Are there any other questions from the audience? I know that I don't really have a question in this, but something, yeah, as you're talking about, once you get one language learning experience and also kind of like a victory, it tends to kind of snowball into, you get the high off of that and then go into the next one and the next one, and you kind of get the skill set. As you're going through your talk, I feel like I also have had a similar pathway in getting to my current place in international education. And I feel like, comparing myself and yourself, I feel like going along with the language thing, having a first experience, I feel like once you have a curious person, it sounds like you were just a naturally curious person, and then you had a first experience internationally. And once those combine one time, at least that's how it was for me. Once, if you're curious and then you have an experience internationally, it's like you can't stop. And I feel like I've met many other people in my life who are like that.
And the curiosity has to outweigh your embarrassment, right? You just have to get past not knowing or saying something wrong. Ukrainian was harder than German for me with the pronunciation because they roll R's. And I was making mistakes for weeks saying a curse word instead of the actual word when asking for something to eat. And when somebody finally told me, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so embarrassed. But I never forgot how to say it correctly after that. And you just have to, that curiosity has to really outweigh the worries. And I think when I went to Mali, I was more embarrassed and more worried. And that's why I think I was more passive. But if you can get past that, you can really gain a lot more from your experience with other languages and places. Yeah.
Looks like there's another question about first culture shock when you went abroad.
So when I went to Mali, there were a lot of things that I found unusual and unexpected. But I think because Mali was so different than the US, I had expected those moments of, wow, what's going on here? And those moments of just being, feeling like it was really different. I had a lot of reverse culture shock when I came back from Mali because it was like I had to go back to school and I was already like a couple days late for the semester. And we had to go to Walmart and get a bunch of groceries. And I remember just being in Walmart and feeling like really overwhelmed with all the choice and all the options. But I think the culture shock really happens when the cultures are really similar and it's something you just don't know why they're doing something different. Like in Ukraine, the first time somebody didn't shake my hand, I was just like, oh, why don't they like me? Nobody told me beforehand that might happen. Or when I go to eat something that I think looks familiar and it just tastes so different and you're like, oh, it's not as sweet as it is in the US or something like that. I think it's when the things they look similar, but you realize that they're really not. That's so surprising. Yeah.
And we have another one here asking about your Department of State internship. Are you able to see the question?
Let me open the chat.
Sorry. Yeah, it's kind of a bit of a longer one, but
this is a really good question. A lot of people who do the internship end up going back and working for the Department of State. A lot of people that I met when I worked, they were like, yeah, I had an internship too and then they would tell me what country their internship had been in. Because with the Department of State, you move every 3 years. So even if you are really good at German, that doesn't mean they're going to put you in Germany forever. You're going to end up going to some, African country and having to learn a totally different language for those 3 years, and then maybe South America and learning another language for 3 more years. And so yeah, they do. It can help to do this internship and then to use that experience. I still know a lot of people who work for the State Department, and I have considered going back, but I really like teaching, and that's not something that they really have a lot of programs for. They work with local schools, but you don't actually get to do the education aspect of it. So yeah, if you're interested in doing an internship, it can really help you to test if you're comfortable with that working environment, to put something great on your resume that shows that you're ready for that, you understand what that kind of work would look like. But also doing any kind of government internship or program like the Peace Corps. The Peace Corps gives you non-competitive application status for a year afterward. So government jobs are easier to get after you do a program like that as well. Anything that puts you in a situation where you're representing our country and you're doing unexpected tasks every day really helps you in that State Department application, which has a lot of steps to it. And you have to be able to fill in a lot of questions about how comfortable are you with cultural diversity and how comfortable are you in situations where you don't know what's next. And being able to give examples from your own life really help with that process.
Yeah, I was going to mention the same thing. I'm also a returned Peace Corps volunteer, and yeah, obviously the DOS internships are a great way, but yeah, Peace Corps.
There's a lot of options. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, and I think another takeaway I had was, I don't know, I know a lot of people bring up that famous Steve Jobs graduation speech, commencement speech about connecting the dots, looking backward. Are you familiar with that?
No, but it sounds inspiring.
Anyway, Steve Jobs had this commencement speech at Stanford, and yeah, so he basically just talked about connecting the dots normally with your career and with your life. It normally happens, you connect the dots in retrospect, and just basically telling graduates that everything is going to work out as long as you stay hungry and stay curious. And yeah, for instance, he was just curious about calligraphy or different texts and fonts, and there was some strange one-off class at his university, and he just sat in on it. He didn't really take it, but he just sat in on it. And then years later, when he was starting Apple, then that kind of attention to detail with the font and the design played a key part in separating Apple. So that's just one example. And he didn't realize that until at the end, and he was looking back and seeing how everything connected. So that was another thing I was thinking about, I'm sure it sounds like from your presentation that your current position, looking back, you were just very curious and open and hardworking, and you weren't really thinking about career every step of the way, but it has made up your career.
I didn't know where I would end up, and I was raised by parents that had careers that definitely followed like a ladder. You know, they had this job, and then they got promoted to this job, and then they got promoted to this job in the same company. And so they were always really concerned, like, what are you doing with your life? Like, where are you going? But I think this generation, especially this generation after me, it's more of a lattice. You know, you can move to the side, you can move over, you can move diagonally. Not very many people have that ladder structure anymore. So anytime you feel like there's something that's a little bit interesting to your side, feel like grabbing it and adding it to your story really helps. Yeah.
Great. All right. Any last call questions? Questions. Okay. Well, Lauren, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jacob.
It's been a pleasure. And I think this is going to be a great addition also to our programming because, yeah, I like how it's really grounded in career building and also global travel. So, yeah, fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So thank you, everybody, for coming, and we'll commence and take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.